Happy Thursday to you. Welcome on in. It's always happy hour here at WagerTalk TV, but it's the college basketball tip-off show for a little early happy hour action for you. Yes, I'm aware I'm not Joe Ranieri. Dan Alexander filling in for the great Joe Ranieri, and I know at least one member that's going to be giving you some college basketball plays here is excited about that. And that's Brian Power. He's joined alongside Jimmy Adams and Steve Merrill. So BP, you get the day off, at least getting ragged on from Joe. So let's hope the plays reflect that, my man. Happy to be
Yeah.
here with you guys.
Well, I certainly hope Joe's okay. I hope everything's
Yeah,
well. I mean,
yeah.
Joe, I know you're watching. Best of luck to you from your best buddy, BP,
Now he
as
did say
always.
I have to hit.
I'll
I
see you
have to
tomorrow.
Yeah, he did say I have to hit a quota of busting your ass at least over 1.5. We'll see if we can cash that early on. But guys, let's get into some of these games. As I mentioned, we got a great crew with us. So BP, let's get right into it with basically a pick'em game. This is a huge slate tonight, so definitely hop below in the comments and let us know what you're eyeing on the card tonight. But our experts have some big game breakdowns and best bets coming your way, as you know and love here. So BP, let's get into the pick'em here with Dayton and LSU. I'm wondering how you're going to be betting this one right out of the gate.
Yeah, it is basically a pick 'em, Dan, like you said, but I think it's a classic buy low spot on LSU, who just lost at home as a 19.5-point favorite to Nichols on a last-second three-pointer. Just a really poor effort for 40 minutes from LSU there. They were down 19 at the half, if you can believe it, again, at home. Now, they were able to fight back. They take the lead just over 5 minutes to go. It just wasn't their night, though. Maybe the players were thinking about this trip to Charleston. I don't know, Dan. They're going to open against Dayton in a first-round matchup. But the thing about that LSU Nicholls State game, 3-point variance really went against the Tigers in that one. They were 3 for 19 from behind the arc, while Nichols 12 of 30, including that decisive game winner. And then you look at Dayton. They also arrive in Charleston off a loss. They fell 71-66 at Northwestern. But what's interesting when you go into the box score, Dayton's 3-point variance, they shouldn't have lost because they were 12 of 23 from behind the arc. In fact, great shooting night overall from the Flyers. They were 53.8% from the floor, and they still lose. So I don't think they're going to shoot as well here in a neutral site. And again, you look at those last two results, even though LSU was a heavy favorite and it's a little head scratching that they lose, at least we can explain it away with the poor shooting night, whereas Dayton, you shoot that well from the floor, you should win. I don't anticipate the Flyers shooting as well as they did against Northwestern here. You look at the KenPom ratings, they do agree with the fact that this game is a basic pick'em. LSU 64th, Dayton 67th, but LSU's an improved team from last season. I would argue Dayton is not. Matt McMahon, head coach from LSU, brings in a couple key transfers, some size added to the ranks. And again, Dayton, not as strong as last year. You got to remember one thing about LSU. Even though they only won 2 games in the SEC last year, they were 12-1 in the non-con. This is a non-conference game. I like LSU to bounce back from that embarrassing loss and beat Dayton to open the Charleston Classic.
Looking towards LSU in the bounce back role. That's Brian Power. You can check him out over at WagerTalk. Hop below in the comments and let us know if you have anything on that game, any thoughts on the total as well, or if you agree or disagree with our expert there, BP. Jimmy Adams currently riding a 21-6 all sports run. He's got a breakdown here in Utah and Wake Forest. And it's fair to say, sure, it's early on in the season, so it's not like we have a huge sample size to draw on. But if you're asking which team has been more battle tested through 2 games, it would be Wake Forest, as this is really Utah's first test, I would maybe argue, here tonight. Would you agree with that, Jimmy? And how are you looking to bet this one?
It's certainly their first test. And yeah, we're headed to the Charleston Classic for today's big game breakdown as Utah and Wake Forest get set to go ahead and battle it out. But the Utes have looked great so far this season with who they've played, hanging 101 on Eastern Washington before an easy cover and a 29-point win over UC Riverside the last time they took the floor. You saw them dominate the rebounding battle, and that's going to be a theme this season. They edged them out 52-30, and their average height is over 6'6" on this team. They're the second tallest team in the entire nation. And Utah's been very effective on both ends of the floor. They rank 25th in the nation in effective field goal percentage. The 3-point shooting's been solid. Actually, all the shooting's been solid inside and outside the arc. As far as Wake Forest is concerned, we just saw them lose straight up to a Georgia team that will most likely finish near the bottom of the SEC. So maybe a little bit more battle tested, but they've failed the test, in my opinion. The Demon Deacons will have a solid offense this season, but they're a real liability defensively, which is where the size of Utah is really going to come into play here. They're not going to get many offensive rebounds at all, and they don't turn you over either. So, with how good Utah's defense is, it's hard to see Wake staying within this number. I like the Utes to continue the strong brand of basketball they've displayed to this point in the season. Give me Utah as the short chalk.
I like it. Utah getting the job done against the Demon Deacons. You agree, you disagree? Let us know. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe. We greatly thank everyone who has ridden with us as the channel continues to grow here. And why not? I mean, getting free plays, getting breakdowns like this across all the sports that you love. It's an absolute no brainer. If you scroll the channel, you're more likely than to see our next guy here, Steve Merrill, the grind don't stop Merrill. He filled in for Prez, not nearly as incapacitated as Prez was on the show yesterday for Wager Talk today. So you did a great job there, Steve, as though the bar was a little low for you, but you did greatly exceed. Let's talk some basketball here, though. And Furman and Liberty, we've seen a little bit of a line movement go towards the Paladins in this matchup. How are you looking to break it down, Steve?
Yeah, this is a fun game to talk about for a big game breakdown because these are two teams, two of the best, maybe the two best mid-major teams of all of 2023 last spring. Keep in mind, Furman made the tournament as a 13 seed and they upset number 4 seed ACAC champ Virginia. Liberty did not make the tournament, but if you look at the final Ken Palm rankings last year, Furman was in the 90s. Liberty finished 48th overall in the nation. So this was a very good Flames team that did not make the tournament last year, and I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder this year, and they will not overlook the opportunity to take it to the team that made the tournament and pulled the upset. You know, Liberty probably was watching that Furman game saying, "Damn, we could have done that." And the other thing is that Liberty plays like Virginia. Virginia and Liberty both played at two of the slowest 5 paces in the country last year. So yes, Furman did okay in that tournament game against a slow down half court Virginia team, but I'm not sure history is going to repeat itself here. I like this matchup for Liberty. And whenever I'm scrolling the college basketball card, I'm always looking at tempo each night. And this is one that jumped out to me. I think Furman prefers a more up tempo pace once again this season. They just scored 84 and 99 in their first games. That Belmont game, by the way, Belmont always plays fast. The total in that game was 161. So now we have what's called a role reversal, having to go from a fast opponent to a slow opponent. And Liberty just played Charlotte, who's one of the only teams that plays slower than they do in the country. And they still put up 71 points on Charlotte. So a really good showing for Liberty. And I think this game will be a half court, slow down, ugly game. And that favors the Flames. Currently, as I check the Wager Talk live odds screen on Thursday afternoon, we're seeing Liberty is about a 1.5 point favorite in most locations. So we're getting them in a pretty much straight up win situation. As you mentioned, Dan, this line did open as high as 2.5. So I like the line value now with Liberty. I think the matchup favors them. Both of these teams should be really good. Both have a chance of making the NCAA tournament. But I think the advantage goes to the Flames tonight. And by the way, this is a neutral site, Myrtle Beach tournament. So yes, Furman is an in-state team in South Carolina, but Flames from my neck of the woods, Virginia, they might travel well also. So I like Liberty in this one.
Yeah, and Steve Merrill, no shocker there as he's fading the line move. You can always check out his Fade the Public video, one of the most well-performing videos that we've had year over year here at Wager Talk TV. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's a great way to get ready for your betting weekend. So check that out from Steve Merrill, and also check him out at wagertalk.com. Speaking of neutral site games, let's swing it back on up to my man Bryan Power and talk about another neutral siter. We got Houston taking on Towson, and on paper, man, this seems like quite the mismatch as the Cougars around 20.5 point favorites here. So, man, BP, are we laying lumber here? Are you looking to attack it a different way? How are you betting this neutral site game between the Cougars and the Towson side?
Yeah, far be it for me, Dan, to tell anyone what to do with their remote control. But if you don't like low scoring, or if you like a lot of points being scored, I would not watch this game because, as you can tell from the total, there's not going to be a lot of points here. Should be a real low scoring game. Yeah, we're heading back to Charleston, number 6 Houston, facing what's going to be actually its toughest test to date against Towson. Dan, you talk about being a mismatch. I'm certainly not going to disagree, but keep in mind, Houston, still got the other game on my mind, has been a 30-point favorite in basically every game so far. So, just, I guess, by default, Towson's their toughest opponent. And Towson is off back-to-back 20-win seasons. They won the CAA 2 years ago. They were the favorites going into last season. Some injuries really derailed things early. Again, this is the first time Houston is not a favorite of -30 or higher. Their average margin of victory so far, the Cougars, 38.7 points per game, but they're 1-2 against the number. That just should tell you right there the level of competition they've faced. Now, Towson stepped up in class once so far this year, not as much as they will here. It was against Colorado. They lost by 18. And what was a really bad sign for this game from the Towson perspective is their offensive efficiency against Colorado was very poor. You take a look at the pace Towson plays at. Steve talked about pace a moment ago. Well, Towson's one of the slowest teams in the country, 358th in adjusted tempo per KenPom. That's bottom 5 in the country. And then something else that sticks out, you look at Towson's statistical profile here, guys. They're shooting pretty well from 3, 37.5%, but they're not making a lot. Just 5 makes per game, and thus averaging only 64.3 points so far. You know, these two teams are combined 6-0 to the under, and even I won't get in front of this trend, Dan. Sometimes I like to play contrarian, but not here. Towson may elect to play even slower than normal, if that's possible.
Fair.
Houston, they don't mind being in a rock fight. Number 1 in defensive efficiency, as per usual, at KenPom. The first 3 Houston opponents, guys, have averaged 43 points per game. That's not a lot. There is not going to be many points scored in this game whatsoever. Under 125 is your best bet for the show today, Dan.
Man, Brian, you make it hard for me because I'm supposed to pick it apart, but you come with such a strong handicap. I got nothing to bang you on that one. So BP looking towards the under. Little ugly rock fight special there for you between Houston and Towson. Jimmy Adams, let's talk about another marquee matchup here. I feel like that's all we talk about in early season college basketball matchups, but this is where we can really make some cash. That's for sure. And it's Texas Arlington going on the road to take on the New Mexico Lobos. I'm wondering how you're looking to bet this one, because again, talk about laying the lumber. This is another about 14.5. Not much line movement there. We have seen a little bit of money on the under. So what say Jimmy Adams on this matchup?
Yeah, well, we cashed our easiest best bet of the season yesterday on this show as Nevada beat Pacific 88-41. And we're going to stick with the Mountain West theme for today's best bet. If you've ever been to the Pit in Albuquerque, then you know that it is absolutely one of the toughest places in all of college basketball to go and compete. Texas Southern got a taste of that in a 37-point loss to start the season. I'm very high on the Lobos this year. They have a legitimate chance to win the Mountain West, in my opinion. They bring back over half of their minutes played from a season ago and probably have the best backcourt in the conference with Jamal Mashburn and Jalen House. Now, House didn't play in their last game, but the Lobos will run up the score in this one, whether he's in the lineup or not. I'm not going to fault New Mexico too much for their loss at St. Mary's. That's a very good program and a tough place to go and win. And UNM has had some drastic home road splits in recent seasons. They played much better in the Pit. As for UT Arlington, don't be fooled by their 2-0 start, all right? They have a 4-point home win over Oral Roberts, which is not a good program this season. And then they beat up on Texas Tyler. So a program that's obviously not even ranked. Arlington finished 6-12 in conference last year and are currently 236th in the nation in offensive efficiency. Huge blowout coming tonight in the Pit. We'll take New Mexico for today's best bet.
That's Jimmy Adams, a man who's not only seen it on the hardwood 6-1 college basketball run, he's seen it on the NCAA gridiron as well, a 7-1 run in college football. You can grab a 5%er over at his page, locked and loaded right now, and he just gave you a nice free play, and he cashed for you yesterday, so you should have a little bit of extra money in your pocket to go on over and check that out. All right, Steve, before we get the gold sheet play of the day, you're going to get the final word as far as the best bets go. Make sure you hop below in the comments and let us know if you're viewing what your best bet is. But you want to take a look at Virginia taking on Texas Southern. How we betting this one, Steve?
One thing I like to do early in both the college football and basketball seasons is look for steamroller blowouts. And I think we found one here tonight. I'm going to use this as the free play of the day here on the show for Thursday college basketball. A line open -20. It's now up to -23, but it's still not high enough for a couple reasons. First of all, Texas Southern, tournament Texas Southern, if you recall, they made it as a 16 seed, got blown out by Fairleigh Dickinson, who turned out to be the Cinderella story of the 16 seeds last year. But Texas Southern was not a good team. That conference always puts in a terrible opponent into the round of 16, the play-in game. And normally those teams are terrible offensively. And that was Texas Southern last year. And it appears to be Texas Southern again this season. They've scored 55 and 52 points in their first two games against Arizona State and New Mexico. They're playing an equally, if not stronger, opponent now in Virginia. And the pace is going to be much slower. And that's the other key to this handicap is that Texas Southern needs to play fast. When you're a terrible shooting team, and by the way, they're not only scoring in the low 50s, they're averaging 19% from three-point range this year on 52 shots. They're shooting below 31% overall from the field, 50% from the free throw line. They can't shoot from the outside. You need to play fast because you have to get points off of steals and transition, etc. And that is not going to happen against one of the slowest teams in the country, the Virginia Cavaliers, who are also one of the best half-court defensive teams in the country year in and year out. So it's a terrible matchup. And yes, Virginia has motivation to win big. Last year in the month of November, they beat Monmouth by 45 points at home, and they also beat Maryland Eastern Shore by 27. So they should get over the 23 here tonight. And last year, Texas, a tournament team at the end of the season, got blown out in Kansas in early season play by 32. They also lost to Houston, which is probably the best case study because that's a slow down half court team. They lost by 35 on the road there. This game has blowout written all over it. If you're going to play it, you better lay it with the Virginia Cavaliers -23 at 7 Eastern tonight on Thursday. And don't forget, if you want my strongest college basketball best bet, it's available right now for my clients on my page, SteveMerrillWagerTalk.com. Get it for 25 tonight, or get all sports, either basketball, football, or all sports combined, for just about $6, $7 a day for an entire 30 days, and save $50 instantly with promo code ALL30. Full details on that 30-day special on my page right now, along with the bonus free plays on a daily basis. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, as he mentioned, he just gave you the free play there on a steamroller that he's eyeing. He's got an even stronger one over at his page. Check that out. Fresh off of a winning night last night as well. All right, guys, I'm going to do a little gold sheet play here. And for those who used to join us on the MLB show, they know that the kiss of death was me breaking these games down. But this is a different sport. It's a different time. So let's go with Southern Illinois and Chicago State over the 130.5. It comes down to Southern Illinois really being notably faster whenever they're out of conference compared to their MVC play. And their first two games, 145, 159 points when they're facing off against some lesser competition. Chicago State, number 325, 325 in defensive efficiency thus far. We expect some points over at thegoldsheet.com over the 130 in Southern Illinois and Chicago State. And the newbie mush is going to be done. This one's cashing. Let's get it. Huge thanks to the guests here. Have a great night tonight, boys. Make sure you're cashing. Brian Power, Jimmy Adams, Steve Merrill. Check them all out at WagerTalk.com. Appreciate Joe Ranieri letting me sit in his chair for the day. Hop below in the comments and let us know what your best bets are. We love chopping it up with you down there. Best of luck until we chat with you. And if you want more info, you want some more breakdowns across all sports that you love, you don't have to go anywhere. You can check out the video right here alongside me. And don't go anywhere. We got all the sports you need we got all the tools you need, rather, to bet all the sports you love just a click away here at Wager Talk TV. Best of luck, everyone.